so we go inside. I have to take Freak off my shoulders so I can get in the door, and that's when Loretta looks at me real hard and she says, I know that one. It's like a flash from the past, Iggy. You know him? Iggy isn't paying any attention to her. He's pointing at this ratty chair, and he says, Sit down. It makes me nervous looking up. Loretta comes around and says, Don't be making Iggy nervous. Not this early in the day. Last dude made him nervous, they had to shut up, Loretta. Iggy says in this real quiet voice, I'm thinking. You're right, he does look familiar. I'm sitting in this chair, which feels like it might bust apart, and Freak is right next to me, and I can see he's trying to stand straight, and it's not easy because he's all bent up inside. Names, Iggy says. Freak clears his throat and tries to make his voice sound deep and more grown up. We're sorry to disturb you, but we really have to go home now. It's a matter of some urgency. Iggy reaches out and he flicks his fingers at Freak's nose. Whack. I can tell it hurts, but Freak doesn't say anything. He just tenses up. Iggy goes, I ask a question. You better answer it. Get it? Names. I want your names. Freak tells his name and then mine, and Iggy reaches down and he pats him on the head. Very good, he says. Now that wasn't hard, was it? Next question. Where'd you get Loretta's purse? Freak tells him we found it in the storm drain. He doesn't mention us dressing all up in black, or the Darth Vader costume, or anything about knights or quests. Next question, Iggy says. Where's the money? Loretta coughs on her new cigarette and says, But Iggy, there wasn't any money. And he goes, Shut up, Loretta. She coughs again and shuts up. You can tell she's afraid of Iggy, the way she holds herself tight whenever he says anything. Freak goes, I've got $2 in change. You can have it, but we really have to go. Iggy gives him this look like he's thinking seriously about throwing up. And he says, What is it with you? You gotta go home? We're having a nice little talk here. Don't spoil it. All of a sudden, Loretta jumps up and she goes, Iggy, I got it. Kenny Kane. Remember Kenny Kane? For a second, I think that he's going to hit her. And then he relaxes and really looks at me. And his eyes go wide and he nods and says, Sure, that's it. Kenny Kane. You're right, he's a ringer for old Killer Kane. Must be his kid, huh? Sure it is. Loretta looks real happy that she finally figured it out. And she runs into the kitchen and kicks some stuff out of the way and pulls open the refrigerator, and we can hear her laughing and saying, I knew it, I just knew it. When she comes back in, she's got 2 cans of Bud, and she pops them both and gives one to Iggy. Breakfast of champions, she says. What a flash, huh? You remember that time, old Kenny? Shut up, Loretta. Iggy says. Then he chugs the Bud and squashes the can in his fist, and he drops it right there on the floor. Which is the first time I noticed all the other crushed cans. They're everywhere. The whole place is like a trash can or a big ashtray or something. Meanwhile, Freak is giving me this look like he has no idea what's going on. And that look scares me more than Iggy and all of his tattoos. I've got him too, Loretta says, snapping her fingers. That midget or dwarf or whatever he is. He must be Gwen's kid. You remember Gwen? Stuck-up Gwen? No, Iggy says, and his eyes are burning into me. Never heard of Gwen. Loretta goes, Doesn't matter. What a flash this is. Kenny Kane. Time flies, huh, Ig? I can remember when those two were born. And then what was it, a couple of years later, Kenny does this thing and he's in the yard, right? Doing time? Iggy says that he is. I know a guy knows him inside. He gives me this creepy look. And he says, You go up there to visit the old man? You tell him Iggy says hello, okay? I doubt he even knows his father, Ig. He was only a little kid when it happened, right? I don't say anything, and Freak is looking at me like he's never seen me before. And then Iggy says, Killer Kane. What a tough hombre he was. Loretta says, I heard he's seen the light in there. He got religion. Is that true? I don't know. Iggy snorts and says, He don't know. You don't know much, do you? I shake my head. Loretta says, He's some kind of retard, Ig. He didn't even know how big and strong he is, I'll bet. She pokes Iggy and tickles him, and in this strange giggly voice she says, "Why don't you find out? Find out if he's as strong as he looks." Iggy scowls and he goes, "Give me a break, Loretta." He gives me this long look, and then he hooks his thumb at the door and he says, "Showtime's over, boys. Get out of here, the both of you." Loretta says, "But Iggy, we could have some fun." "You're the retard, Loretta," Iggy says. "What if Killer Kane hears I was messing with his kid? No thank you." "He's in for life," she says. "What's the harm?" "Life ain't life. How many times I tell you that?" Loretta's squinting at him and she goes, "Are you serious? He's getting out someday?" And Iggy looks at me and he tells her to shut up again. Finally, he gets to the door, and that's when Loretta wants to rub Freak on the head, real hard with her knuckles. "This is for luck," she says to Iggy. "It's good luck rubbing a dwarf on the head." Freak is trying to duck away, and he says, "I'm not a dwarf, and I'm not good luck." So Loretta gives up on rubbing his head, and she stands up straight and folds her arms, and she says, "Hey, Midget Man, I know all about you. Your old man was a magician. Did you know that?" Freak is scuttling around behind me, keeping out of the way, but when she says that, I can tell he really wants to know about his father. If maybe he really was a magician. "Yeah," Loretta says. "Right after you was born, he must have been a magician, because as soon as he heard the words birth defect, he disappeared." A second later, Iggy shoves us out the door. So I want to ignore that last comment if I can, because that was incredibly rude of Loretta. But they spend a lot of that chapter talking about how scary and tough Iggy Lee is, and then the instant that we hear that he makes the connection with Kenny Kane, even though Kenny is in prison, and even though Kenny has apparently found religion, according to what he's heard, and there's no reason that he's done anything wrong, he's still kind of afraid of him, and he wants to stop picking on his kid in case it gets back to him. So the comparison there, that we spend this whole time thinking, man, this guy's really tough and scary, and then he's scared of Max's dad. So that gives us some insight into how scary maybe he is, or at least to some people.